Welcome back to the Real Couchwives podcast where we overanalyze all things Bravo.
While the Vanderpump Rules episodes might be lagging a little bit, there is quite a bit happening in the VPR world. Jax has returned to our screens. I'm upset to say that I didn't hate it. At least his appearance on Vanderpump Rules. He really put Tom in his place, which I enjoyed. He's also now on The Valley, so he is on 2 shows, and I don't know how we let this happen. And we're also seeing relationships just kind of crumble, everywhere. Talking about you, Lala and Katie, Lala and Ariana, Ariana and Scheana. What is happening?
The group is not in a good place. The group is not doing well.
We are not okay. So we're just going to talk a little bit about what's going on in VPR.
So obviously not this last episode, but the last episode last week ended with Jax coming back to Vanderpump Rules. Carrie, how did you feel about seeing him again? Did you kind of know that it was coming? How did you feel about that?
I think we all knew that it was coming. Also, I saw the episode late. So it was definitely spoiled. But I have to say, the way that the drama of the way that he entered. Yes. So they did the slow pan starting at his shoes all the way up. You see his silhouette. My fiance is literally okay, are they giving him a Thanos edit from Marvel, as in he's the big bad reveal? And I'm honestly, he kind of is the Thanos. Thanos? I haven't said it in so many.
I think it's Thanos.
Anyways, he kind of is that of VPR.
Yeah, especially for the guys.
And you know what? He's the only person who gets under Tom Sandoval's skin so much. Yes. He makes his skin crawl. It looked like he peed a little when he saw him. So in that case, I didn't hate it, and I was kind of surprised.
I know, I actually appreciated it. I totally get what you mean about the Thanos reference. For me, it was very much giving Jaws with the fun. Oh my god. Yeah, I appreciated that he did kind of put Sandoval in his place. I feel that's the first person that we've really seen in this season so far kind of go up against him. And obviously it does kind of make you a little bit miss the old Vanderpump Rules days when they literally did they fought so much, those guys in particular, but just everybody, because everybody was they were in these streets fighting.
But especially those two. Yeah. Those two had the weirdest relationship where they loved each other and they were bros, but they were also super competitive and kind of hated each other. And number one guy in the group fighting.
Yes. And also always covering for each other, but also Jax was always the wild card that would kind of
reveal
little bits and pieces of information, especially when it was most convenient for him.
Always. Also good. The way he's just oh, you look good. You looked horrible. I saw you in the press. You looked rough. 50. Man, you look 50 years old.
Yeah.
And also there's Schwartz, classic Schwartz being I guess this is a good idea. Also this must have been production. I feel they're having Schwartz set up a lot of things.
Yes.
That is clearly not Schwartz.
He's never done this much, coming up with plans or doing things
even the
before.
Tahoe thing. I think people were when has Schwartz ever planned a trip? Or oh, I thought this would go well. And then you just see him in the confessional. He's this is going so badly. Yeah. Also, it was a small dose, which I think is the appropriate amount of Jax Taylor.
Yes, yeah, and it did feel kind of a little bit cathartic to kind of just have him kind of be there and kind of come in, start some drama. Do we think it's gonna kind of continue? Do we think he's gonna be present in other parts of the season, or do we think it's this is the one and done and now he's off in the valley?
At first, I thought that he was gonna have. I think that he does have a scene with Lisa, right? I think
right. Okay,
so there is that.
They're gonna have a sit down.
I think I thought he was gonna have more of a presence on the show, but you know what? Now that I've seen, they had him on this episode right after is the Valley. I do actually think this was just a device to cross over into the Valley and pretend there is some consistency. I thought, which I didn't think at the beginning. When we heard he was coming back, I thought they were just oh wow, I guess everyone's back on the table. But I do think they did it specifically for the Valley.
Yeah, I just wish that they'd also done it as well as they had done the transition between Beverly Hills and Vanderpump Rules. I was so excited. I 100% thought that we were gonna get him leaving the restaurant, getting into his car, driving to the Valley, and then being honey, I'm home to Brittany and what is their child's name?
something with a C.
Yeah.
Cruise.
Cruise.
Were you saying couch?
I was gonna say Couchy, and I was like, that's his last name. What is that?
Oh, right. That's the main reason we hesitated on calling our Couchwives community Couchies, because
Yeah, because we
we're
don't want to
like,
be
oh no.
associated that closely
Let us
accidentally.
know in the chat. Do you want to be Couchies or do you want to be Couchwives?
Couch
Because we're
wives,
all
yeah.
Couchwives, really.
Yeah,
Anyway,
exactly. If you hang out on a couch, you are a couch wife.
let us know.
Yeah, a futon, perhaps. Yeah, so I kind of wish that they had done like a little bit of a better job, like setting that up. I
Yeah,
think that that was like a missed opportunity, especially when they did it like so expertly, like 13 years ago or
they've
whatever.
never
Like,
recreated it again.
no.
Even Summer House, while at the time it was
Hmm.
off-putting and we were like, why are you showing us
Yeah.
these people? It at least did a
It did.
better
It
job.
flowed. It did. It gave
And
you context.
they had even less of a connection. Like
Yeah.
were any of them even friends?
Did the Workus twins really even know Stassi? Like,
Yeah,
let's be honest here.
it's so true. And you know what's surprising too, when we went into the valley, which I do want to talk about really quickly, the valley, I did see the first
Hmm.
episode and I
Yeah.
also didn't hate it. I'm honestly kind of upset at myself.
Yeah.
um but there's a lot more connection in the valley than I
Hmm.
thought there would be. Like the people that
Yes.
they chose for the most part are actually in this friend group.
Hmm.
Like, oh gosh, but I don't know any of their names.
Yeah, I started to like write them down just to get like a little bit of a sense.
Janet was
Yeah.
actually friends with Scheana, and like if you go back on Instagram, like you see her in pictures of Scheana and Ariana,
Oh, that's
and Katie.
cool.
Like, so she actually seems like in the group.
Yeah.
Um, there is more of that. Also, like Lala's in the show.
Hmm.
Schwartz is going to be there, so there's definitely more
Yeah.
of a like tie-in,
Crossover. Yeah.
but they don't seem to promote it that way, except for having the Valley people in the after show talking about the VPR, which is
Yeah.
like, that is not the way. Like, none of us care. Like,
Yeah.
why do we care about these random people's opinions on VPR?
I know. It really doesn't make any sense. And like the thing is, if we don't know fully the degree that they are like integrated as friends, like we don't know why they would know each other, or like that they wouldn't have opinions on these people because they're in their friend group,
Yeah. Also, I think you
right?
brought this up too. Like, the after show felt like such a cool and unique thing to put for VPR because,
Hmm.
you know, we were at a time where we all wanted to know more. Now it's actually getting a little bit,
Yeah.
it's a
We're like,
lot,
okay,
and and it's
okay.
starting to feel like homework, and also we're
Yes,
getting pretty frustrated at some of the takes that we're seeing, which we're going
that's
to get
just
to in a
it.
moment.
Yeah.
But then to give the Valley an after show, like,
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's deserved.
No, it doesn't at all. Like, especially considering you have like long-standing shows like Summer House that don't have like an after show.
Yeah,
And granted, like they don't really need an after show, but the
24/7
Valley doesn't
surveillance won't do
either.
that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, let's save it for the reunion. Let's see what your opinions are then.
That's true. Although I
Yeah.
would not hate it to have Lindsay and Carl having to, well, mainly Lindsay having to watch these episodes and talk about them.
I mean, I don't think it would be any different than what we're getting in her confessional, also.
That's
And that's
true.
kind of the issue that I think we're having too. Even when we would see like Beverly Hills and stuff, it's either just a chance for somebody to kind of like double down in exactly what they said in their confessional, or exactly like stand by their feelings in the moment. There's no actual kind of like self reflection or like real like elaboration that we're getting from these after shows.
Yeah, no, that's it. How did you feel about the Valley?
So I did enjoy it. I do think that it was like pretty solid for the first episode. I think that it feels like there's a lot of couples. I did actually write I think I got captured all of them. I did write their names down just in case. So we obviously have the ones that we know, which are Kristen and Luke, and Brittany and Jax. And then we have Danny and Naya, Jesse and Michelle, and Janet and Jason. And like, other than Janet and Jason, would you be able to pick Danny, Naya, Jesse, and Michelle out of a line?
Jesse, because I feel like he's gonna be the villain. Him and Jax are gonna be the
Okay.
villains.
Okay.
But when you
Fair.
first said those two couples, like, I know there's
Yeah.
a couple there's one couple that has like one kid, and there's one couple that has like two newborns
Yeah.
and another kid. And also the husband was on like Nickelodeon or something. Like
Oh yeah, he was on Hannah Montana, and then he became like a voice actor or something.
yeah.
And one of them has a Pomeranian tattoo, which I
Yeah.
really
Jet, the
appreciated.
problematic one.
The problematic one. Okay, well there you go. He's at least got my vote for now. And
Yeah.
then they had two kind of other ancillary characters, which are Jasmine and Zach, which I guess they were introduced as like Kristen's friends, but they're not a couple.
Yeah, and Jasmine worked at Sir, which she did look familiar.
Oh
So
yes.
I
Okay.
think she was in the
Cool.
early seasons of VPR as like,
Yeah.
remember like the group that when Stassi was in a fight with like the girls and like Kristen and
Oh
Katie, she would like
yes.
go to like have other friends
I'm glad all
who
my real friends from Vegas finally got here now.
her backup Vegas friends.
Yeah,
So
exactly. The
maybe
people that she didn't invite early enough so that
yeah.
they couldn't get the night off, so they had to drive all night after working their shift at Sarah to be able to come join her at her birthday party in Vegas.
It's so funny. Also,
Yeah.
I have another friend who just started watching Vanderpump Rules, and like the
Hmm.
joy that it brings me, like cannot even be put into words. I was like so
Oh,
excited. She's watching it with her husband too, which I'm like, yes.
wow.
Um
Starting
sorry.
from the very beginning.
Starting from the beginning.
Oh,
And
nice.
it's just so funny because she's like, I'm like, okay, text me like how you're feeling about it. And she's like,
Hmm.
Stassi is so mean.
You're like, yeah.
Like I can't. And I'm like, honestly, I felt that too. I'm like, I promise you're gonna love her. And she's like,
Yeah.
I'm having a very hard time understanding how I'm gonna love her. And it's like, to be honest, I don't know when it
Yeah.
happens. It's
I
so gradual.
I feel like to a certain degree you just kind of have to like respect like anybody that can kind of like toss words, throw wit, throw shade, whatever, like do all that kind of stuff. Like you just can't help but be impressed by it. Like it's a perfect reality
But
TV
she also does
personality.
have an arc. Like she does really
Yes.
grow as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%.
Uh,
So,
anyways, I
yeah.
digress on that. But yeah, the
Yeah.
Valley. I also think I just had such low expectations that maybe I'm
Mm.
more thinking of it like that. One thing
Yeah.
that is crystal clear is that Jax Taylor has not changed.
Mm-mm. No. No.
And he
Not
spent
at
the
all.
entirety of this episode talking about how he is concerned that Kristen wants to have a baby with
Mhm.
her new boyfriend Luke, and
Yes.
how and it's just like, I think there's literally one scene where there's like a bunch of dudes in in a kitchen, and Lala literally calls out like, this is a bunch of men talking
Yeah.
about whether or not a
Whether or not
woman is ready to
yes.
be a mom. Like that
Yeah.
is not okay.
Let's go break this up. Let's go get the actual person that's being spoken about here right now and get her to weigh in on it too.
It's just
Yeah,
classic Jax.
it is classic Jax. It is classic Jax just running his mouth, saying whatever comes out of there, and just yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think I felt good about the episode overall. I think it's interesting. I think we'll get like somewhere kind of good. Um, and it doesn't need to be like groundbreaking, most amazing, best TV ever. Like at least if it's like fairly enjoyable, I'll be pretty happy with that.
That's true. And now we also know that like Jackson and Brittany are on a break.
Yeah.
Which is very confusing break as well. It
Yes.
and it is
Yes.
giving, actually no, I don't want to compare them to Ross and Rachel. That's way too sacred. But like
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
it's
I
just
don't
like,
think that they're ever like
no, 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 no. But it's more just like they're separated, but they're still doing the podcast together. They're
Mhm.
still like completely intertwined, which is and I
Yes.
feel like if you were separated and things weren't working, you were upset with each other to continue to be. I don't know.
I
It's
know.
it's
It
interesting.
it does feel weird, especially cuz we're now like, okay, this is like the third is this only the third? This is the fourth. This is the fourth Bravo couple to break up, and that's kind of like what we're watching the season for, right? Like that's the Kyle and Mauricio, it's Carl
True.
and Lindsay, and then obviously Ariana and Tom being like the blueprint, let's say, for this. And now Jax and Brittany, and you're just kind of like, okay, I can't wait to see which couple's gonna break up for Southern Charm next season. Like
It's
everybody
true.
just does that.
People are kind of speculating that this is just for promo.
Yeah,
If
I
so, that's
mean,
horrible because you have a kid.
yes, or it genuinely is that like Jax has just been like waiting to get to this point, and now he's like, oh, I'm gonna be famous again. Like it's time for me to get single. I'm ready to like go. out and not be in like a committed relationship anymore.
I mean, I could definitely see it. The fights that they're having aren't shocking
No.
considering their relationship.
No, I never thought that they should really end up together in the first place, anyways,
Dude, no.
unfortunately.
No.
So,
I was not. I was also not really a fan of
yeah.
this couple.
It just felt like that was like too much of like an odd pairing. Like it didn't really
There's
feel,
too many weird motives, too much
yeah,
forgiving of horrible things on Jax's
yeah,
end,
yeah.
just too much like yeah, you want to talk about, putting on rose-colored glasses that
Mm-hmm.
people accuse Tom and Ariana of, like that's
Yeah.
definitely one.
But yeah, so that's the valley. We'll see how it goes. We'll
Yeah,
give
I
it a
don't
few
know.
episodes to breathe and
I don't know
decide.
if it's worth recapping, but I would be interested, or I would be let us know if you guys are interested in this. I know some people actually said that they will only watch it if we recap it, which is so nice. I would be willing to add it to our VPR recaps, like just kind of like
Yeah,
do a little like this is what happened on
totally.
that, like at a high
Yeah.
level.
No, I think that would be pretty fun.
Okay, so VPR right now
Mm-hmm.
is the most infuriating
Yeah.
experience that
Yeah.
I could say.
Yes. Yeah. What do you feel like you're finding the most infuriating about it?
So I think I've moved off. At first, it was the Tom Sandoval redemption arc, as we've been talking
Mm-hmm.
about, but now it's
Mm-hmm.
just gotten like so horrendous that you almost have to laugh at it. Like it's just
Yeah.
like it's not working.
Yeah.
Um, the thing that makes me really mad is the girls turning on Ariana and just hearing
Mm-hmm.
Lala and Scheana make up these stories and just have these stances that make no sense and just throw her under the bus and like pretty much assassinate her character. Like that's what's really
Yes.
getting me frustrated. What about you?
Yes. Yeah. No, I think that's a good point. I think in like our last Summer House episode, we were talking about how Carl was kind of like having these issues with Lindsay and like he wasn't really like properly like or like fully articulating what those issues were. And in like not this week's but like last week's episode with Scheana and Ariana, we see Scheana and Ariana finally like sit down together and talk about Dancing with the Stars, and the way that Scheana talks about it with Ariana is such a different portrayal of the conversations that she's had with Lisa, with Lala, with the after show. Like you had the opportunity to tell your best friend, hey, I'm like really devastated by this and I'm really upset, and like I've like she could have owned up to how all of her feelings in that moment, and she didn't do that. And instead we're getting kind of like this like sneaky behind Ariana's back like betrayal, and it makes that also like dimension of it really hard to watch because you're just like,
Yeah.
oh, Ariana has no idea, and she's finding out live as we're finding out how
Yeah.
like Sheena's really feeling about all of this.
I totally agree. And like, yeah, Ariana literally gave her the opportunity. She's like, "Hey, like I heard you're upset with me. Like I want you to
Mm-hmm.
be honest and I don't want you like I want you to tell me what you're feeling."
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Lisa went to her and said like, "Scheana
Yes.
said these things."
Yeah.
Um and then Sheena's just like, "Oh no, like yeah, I was kind of upset, but it was more the way that it came out." And it's like Ariana's
Mm-hmm.
literally said like she had an NDA with Dancing
Mm-hmm.
with the Stars. She said on the after show that you know she could have lost it had this come out
Right.
before it was
Yes.
supposed to. Like this was
Yeah.
a serious thing, and obviously she
Mm-hmm.
didn't do it to like hurt her friend.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
But also like the two people that like let's say she did tell even just Sheena, like Sheena has a podcast, like Sheena has like Sheena like vlogs, like Sheena like puts her life out onto the universe. She has the does she do Amazon lives? Lala definitely does the Amazon lives at least. Like
mm-hmm,
there are these are the instances in which all this like information was like coming out so much last summer because of the like constant communication that Sheena and Lala were having with us, the audience, with the public. Like that's how these things were coming out. So I can kind of understand her being a little hesitant and being concerned about sharing that information before it was officially ready to be shared.
yeah,
And also,
no,
like, I just don't even think that that is what Sheena's issue
oh,
is.
hundred
And that's
percent
the annoying
not.
thing,
And
too.
then again, she talks about on the after show how she apparently it kind of sounds like maybe she was in talks or like there was a reason that she thought that she would be considered this season.
Yes.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
And then we learn that Tom Sandoval himself was also taking ballroom dancing classes
Oh my
because
god.
apparently he's been trying to get on Dancing with the Stars for like the whole time he's been on Vanderpump.
Oh my god. Well, and that just makes me think, do you remember when we found out that Ariana was doing that? And I think they were at like the MTV Movie Awards or something, and somebody interviewed Tom Sandoval, and I guess it was like just as like Dancing with the Stars was actually like kicking off, and they asked him about the fact that Ariana was on it, and he's like, "Oh, like I know that this is the thing that she's wanted for like so
Yeah.
long," and he just made it sound like she was like this like pathetic loser waiting around for Dancing with the Stars
When
her
really that
entire
was you and
life.
Scheana.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they do
Like,
like to project. And then Lala has been making
yes.
some really outlandish comments. The most
Mm-hmm.
recent one being on the after show.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember how this came up. She basically said that
Oh,
something
yes.
about her is
Yeah.
like Schwartz and Sandy's 2.0, and
Mm-hmm.
Ariana is like Sandoval,
Yeah.
and Schwartz is like Katie.
Yeah.
Why did she say that? Oh, she said that
I
because
think it was, yeah, the Dancing with the Stars thing, right?
yeah, because Brittany was
Yeah.
like, oh, and Brittany with the setup. Like, Brittany,
I
what are
know.
you
I
doing? Brittany was
know.
like, yeah, like Lala was saying why Scheana was hurt that she didn't know. And
Mm-hmm.
then Brittany was like, oh, didn't she also do that with
Katie?
Chicago?
Oh,
And
yeah. Okay,
then
Chicago, Katie.
Lala goes, yes, why, yes, she did. And then she says the comparison. Then she's like, is no one looking at this and being like, I've seen this before. These are very similar. And you could tell she really
Yeah.
thought she was doing something.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like,
I know.
no, that's not the same thing at all.
No. And like I can kind of understand the comparison because like when all of this was going down with Schwartz and Sandy's and Scandival was breaking and all that information was coming out and Schwartz and Sandy's was, you know, heavily impacted by that. Tom Sandoval did go up and he like went on tour and like he had to go do like all the tour dates and stuff. So I can kind of see a little bit of the comparison, but it's also just like I don't know, does it feel rich? Does it feel just kind of like disingenuous? Like, is it just that you're like grasping at these like straws and like trying to make these comparisons and trying to make, I don't know, Ariana out to be like this awful human being? And so like everybody now gets compared to Tom Sandoval,
Well, yes, and
no matter what you've
also
done.
it feels also like if you dig into it a little deeper, and I'm sure she didn't mean it in this way, but like it's also kind of pretty hurtful to be
Hmm.
comparing Ariana to, her ex who cheated on her for eight
Yeah.
months, and
Yeah.
also to compare Katie
To
to her
Schwartz.
ex-husband
Yeah.
who
The
prioritized
meanest thing
Schwartz
you
and
could do.
Sandy's over
Yeah.
her, and to be like,
Yeah.
you're the Schwartz. Like, this is
Yeah.
just like, it's
Come
just
on.
overall not.
Yeah. That's just it. And like and just to know the like place that Lala is in with both Katie and Ariana and to kind of like use that moment to also like pit the two of them a bit against each other. Um it's just
Why are the girls, it always comes down to this. Like, it makes me think about, I don't know why my mind goes to, the Austin situations from Southern Charm, where it's
yes.
always two
Yeah.
girls fighting each other instead of
Mhm.
Austin. Like, it's
Mhm.
always pinning the girls against each other, and I hate when they play into that.
Yeah.
It's just not okay. And it's like, Lala, you don't even like Sandoval. Like, what are you
Mhm.
doing this for?
No, it doesn't make
Like,
it. That's just it. It doesn't make any sense, and it's all in the name of like allegedly like protecting her peace and trying to be a softer person. But it's like, oh no, you're just really trying to be like a softer person in like one particular direction and in whatever way is convenient for you. But you have no intention of being a softer person to Ariana and like understanding empathy and sympathy and understanding how she might be feeling in all of this and like
yeah.
trying to just genuinely be nice and copacetic with everyone. Like that is very different. If Lala well and truly was doing that and like trying to live softer and like not have like hate and anger inside her heart, then that would be so different. But she does have hate and anger inside her heart, and she is going after Katie and Ariana, and like it's just in favor of the Toms and in favor of Scheana and like in favor of like
Yeah.
this alleged like idea of like, oh, we have to save the show and the only way that we can do that is if we all get along and all
It's
come
such a good
together.
point. Yeah. It's really it's really unfair. And even like when she has a sit down with Katie and they're like, I guess they're gonna bury the
Yeah.
hatchet apparently.
Yeah.
Um in her confessional, Lala's like, you know, I'm trying to choose peace, and like Katie's still on this warpath. And it's like,
Hmm.
what warpath is Katie on? Like, Katie is
Yeah.
the definition of unbothered.
Yeah, Katie has not been on a warpath like anytime recently. Like I don't know who she's yes, she's able to like stick up for herself and defend herself in moments when she needs to, but for the most part like Katie's like pretty much out of the drama. And you were in fact very much the person like inserting yourself into the drama last season. Like Katie was not. Like Katie was not the person at the reunion last year like going ham and yeah,
I feel like something
being
is
on the
happening.
warpath.
Yeah, we've been saying this. Like, this, the reason this season feels so difficult too is because it feels really fake.
Mhm.
And like, I I don't know if it's actually better or worse if Scheana and Ariana are more just, if Scheana and Lala are more just like, maybe Ariana and Katie will leave and we need to continue on the show and
Yeah.
this is the way to do that. That
Mhm.
still sucks. It's
Yeah.
almost like it's so difficult to think that these are their actual feelings, because like how could you get to that place? Like how could you believe the things that you're saying?
Yeah, well, and actually, it's interesting that you kind of bring that up too, because like thinking about like the show and the prospects of the show and where it can go from here, watching the Valley actually made me feel like, oh no, there was actually probably maybe a bit of a missed opportunity to like bring these two shows together. Like maybe you should have just had Jax and Kristen go back onto Vanderpump Rules. You could have started to like slowly introduce maybe some of these like side characters. But I think they're so tied to the idea of like the Valley is the next generation of Vanderpump Rules, and Vanderpump Rules will be rebooted with a younger cast. And it's like, but you can't reboot Vanderpump Rules with the younger cast. Every time you guys have attempted to do that, it doesn't work. And what you really need to do is actually like foster the like group that is in Vanderpump Rules and like re-inject the like information and drama and like different things into there. And this spin-off with the Valley, while like I think it's enjoyable and I'll probably watch this season, like it I think it's hindering what Vanderpump Rules could have been this season if they had just brought like Jax and Kristen back.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it's like,
Because there's no storylines on Vanderpump Rules right now.
no, there isn't. And it's similar to
Nothing.
Summer House too, right? Where we're like, they keep putting these people in a summer house and trying to be like debauchery, party. And it's like some of them
Hmm.
are in their 40s now. And like, it's,
Yeah.
but we're invested in them and we
Yeah.
don't mind seeing them through other phases of their life. Like, you
Yeah.
can step away and grow out of the original premise of the show.
Hmm.
But I feel like they
Yeah.
just keep trying to force these people into the same scenarios they were in when they were in like
Yeah.
their 20s, and like
Yeah.
that's not fun either.
Well, and I think that's why like Summer House a little bit missed the mark last season when they brought Sam, Gabby, and Chris on. Is I think that they thought like, oh, we're bringing like new hot singles kind of like into the group, and like granted they've kind of done that a little bit this year, but there's still not. Everybody was kind of saying that Summer House was gonna like needed more like 20 somethings, and like Summer House has never been about 20 somethings. Like even
No,
when
they were like in their 30s
they
when
were
it
already in their
started.
30s. Yeah, exactly. They were in their 30s. Maybe there was a couple of them that were in their 20s, but like for the most part, they were young professionals in their 30s. And because, yeah, they would have probably been in even grosser houses if they were still in their 20s. The very beginning. Not that their houses were ever gross. They were
No, it
all
was pretty
mega
nice. Yeah.
mansions. Um, but yeah, like there's like this like kind of like idea of like what a younger audience needs and like what these like shows need to do to pivot and like be able to like appeal to us. And time and time again I feel like Bravo just keeps on like missing the mark of like what that actually is and what that looks like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true. It's true. I also kind of want to touch really quickly on like Katie
Kate
and Lala. Wow.
oh Katie and Lala's
Oh my gosh.
relationship. No.
Because clearly there's something that happened after last season. I think it was at the reunion
Hmm.
or something that Lala is holding on to.
Yeah.
I'm confused at what is going on there. They're clearly like not really friends right
Yeah.
now. Do you
Yeah.
have more info?
Like probably just about the same amount of like bits and pieces as you've had. I have listened to Lala's podcast where she kind of like addresses it, doesn't address it. She says that something happened, I think, right before the reunion last year, so season 10's reunion. Um, and they kind of like got like into like a little like tiff or something, and then when they went to go film Watch What Happens Live in New York, they had like the moment in like on the plane. I keep on saying come Jesus, we're retiring that right here and right now. But they had like they kind of like talked about it on the airplane ride to New York, and they thought that it had been resolved. They have Watch What Happens Live, they have the Sandoval break, they have actual Vanderpump Rules like reunion and everything like that for season 10, wrap up, done, behind them. So Katie kind of like goes into season 11 allegedly thinking that like everything is like kind of like back on a normal playing field and that they're like in a relatively good place. um and clearly like Lala is like, no, like that thing that's happened before the reunion like is still bothering me. And now Katie has talked about it on Watch What Happens Live, which is kind of how I got that timeline. And Lala's like, if she doesn't remember what the actual thing is, then she's got bigger problems. I think Lala said that on like a Watch What Happens.
Oh
No,
yeah.
sorry, on an Amazon Live.
Again, the
Too
selective
many things.
amnesia rears
Yeah,
its
exactly.
head.
The selective amnesia. Um, yeah, so like that's just it. And it's like annoying too because it's like, okay, well, so Lala has this podcast where she like talks about it but doesn't talk about it. We have the actual show that is literally filming in the summer when they are in a bad place, and boy would it be nice if they told us what an amazing storyline, something else for us to look at other than Sandoval have another confessional moment by himself. Like
Yeah.
anything, give us anything, Lala. And
Touche.
I'll blame Katie too. Get like just let us know what's going on because now
Yeah.
we're all like super confused because you were in like a totally good place in season 10, and then you didn't talk to each other really at the reunion, and then because you didn't need to because like that wasn't the matter at hand. But now we're just confused why you guys are in this weird place in season 11 and you're on having like cryptic conversations via podcasts and Amazon Lives and
Yeah.
Watch What Happened Lives
It's
appearances,
so
and
true.
it's
It's so
not.
true. We have podcasts, we have after shows, we have shows, we have Watch What
Yeah,
Happens Live, and we still
yeah.
are not getting
We still
anything
have
out of
no
all of
idea.
those things.
It's
Like,
giving Kyle and Mauricio on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills this season.
oh my gosh, the tea there too is that like they're putting more of that relationship on
Yeah.
Buying Beverly Hills apparently than was
Yes.
on Real Housewives, which
Yeah.
I actually enjoyed the first season of Buying Beverly
Yeah.
Hills just as like a casual viewing,
Yeah.
mainly because I really just like seeing the houses.
Yeah, that's fair.
Um, Less so anything else, but I think I'll watch this season for that.
I mean, you're gonna have to, and you'll have to report back and let us know what's going on over there.
Okay, I'll
Because
let
yeah,
you
I
know.
won't be watching.
And then the other fractured relationship apparently is Lala and Ariana, who go
Yes.
in like get into it fiercely at the reunion.
Hmm.
Again, I'm sure, well, already it's being spun like Ariana was so mean and she said
Yeah.
horrible things, and
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, she probably
Good.
saw the
Good for
season
her.
and like
Get her, Ariana. Oh yeah, I know. Well, and it's so funny too because I heard Lala like, in the last couple of weeks to talk about it on her podcast too. Um, and it's just funny how similar it is to kind of like her narrative of like walking away from the reunion in season 10 where she's like, oh, you know, that was such a dark reunion, like I went home and like usually everybody goes out and like has dinner or whatever afterwards, but I just went home and like hung up by myself and like cried and stuff because it was so dark, it was so intense. And then in this season 11 reunion taping that we like have, we find out that yeah, like it was very intense, it was very emotionally raw, and then she went home and cried, and then apparently she went out and played mini golf afterwards, and so that was like her form of therapy for rehabilitating herself after this big conversation with Ariana.
oh, they're gonna pile on her. I can see it.
Yeah.
And
And Ariana still got first spot in the reunion, though. So
yeah. Oh
first
yeah.
chair,
And Scheana's like the last one, and you
literally the last one. Literally the last one. I was like, oh wow, all that mess, and you still number 4.
still couldn't
Oh,
make it about you enough.
no, sorry. Hate
Okay,
to break it to you.
two other really small things I wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah.
In the after show,
Mhm.
Tom has a scene where like
Oh God.
he's just so clearly trying to show that like Ariana also makes messes in the
Uh,
house.
yes, yes. Oh my
And
God.
it was so funny because like you could tell he was just making this up on the spot. Like this was
Yeah,
like the biggest lie. Even
yeah.
Schwartz was like looking down and like it was so funny. He's like, you know,
Check phone.
like she has parties too. Like sometimes it's like a Monday and she's up. I'm trying to do it like he did.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like it. I like it.
She's there till like 4 in the morning with like so many people, and then like on a Wednesday also 4 in the morning, and then like 5 days in a row to like 4:30 in the morning and I have work tomorrow and I go downstairs and I'm like, guys, keep it down. That's my TV. I'll take the TV down. I'll unplug it. And like it's just like the
Oh
like
my
it just, you
god.
could tell his wheels are spinning trying to put this story. I don't know. Did that
Yeah.
also just read as like the fakest thing in the whole
It did.
world?
It did. And that's I'm pretty, if I'm not mistaken, like Jax is also in that scene at that point,
Yep.
like with the three of them filming
Yep.
the after show.
Jax is
And
like, I'm
like
tapping in.
but it was just like, yeah, they were just like, oh, okay, yeah, this is a great story. Good job, Sandoval. You really threw her under the bus with that one.
Yeah, we really, really all bought that.
Yeah,
Also,
yeah.
like, isn't she like doing Dancing with the Stars and like doing all these things? Like, when is
That's
she
just
up to
it.
like
Like
4 in the morning for
that's
5 days?
well, that's just it. That actually made me wonder. I'm like, was she maybe just getting up at 4 in the morning and like having to go to like rehearsals and stuff? Like, are you confusing going to bed at 4:30 and waking up at 4:30? Like,
Oh my
what's your
god,
grasp on reality here, sir?
that. Okay, sorry, I'm all over the place. We're trying
No,
to put so much in such a small amount of time.
there's just so much going
But it
on.
just made me think of a quote that I really liked from The Valley, which is when
Okay.
Janet was talking about how her husband is a lawyer, but like a
Oh
workers'
yeah.
comp
Yes.
lawyer or something, like
Yes.
very
Yeah.
specific.
Yeah.
And how Jax just like thinks that he's like amazing and he
Yeah.
thinks that he's very, oh, what was it? It's like, oh, he opens his mail on time. He's
Yes.
such a lawyer. And
Yeah.
she's like, yeah, Jax attributes a lot of traits to lawyers that are in fact just being an adult human.
Yes. I did appreciate that. I think Janet so far is my standout. I like her.
Yeah.
Her and
Oh,
then the
that
guy
was
with the Pomeranian tattoo.
yeah. It was so funny.
uh,
And then yeah, Jax did answer back
yeah.
on that little tangent, being like, well, don't you pay all the bills? Like, the house is
Yeah.
basically yours. You should do
Right.
whatever
Yeah.
you want. Like,
Yeah.
what pact do these people have with each other?
Meanwhile, did you see on TikTok that the person that is the bartender in Tom Sandoval's like last
Sexy
week's
singles pool
yeah,
party.
the sexy singles pool party from last week. Um, she's like, yeah, I was hired as a bartender. I'm not Tom's friend. Like I was hired as a bartender for that event, and I still haven't been paid.
Yeah.
So, and it seems like that's not the first time that he's giving charade in Real Housewives of Atlanta.
Or like Anne, who like is supposed to be his
Yeah.
assistant, but really is just his
Oh
mom,
my
as
god,
Ariana
his like literal
said.
housekeeper, like oh
Yeah.
my god. As somebody who used to be a babysitter that sometimes got like requested to be a housekeeper as well, I do not appreciate or stand for that.
Yeah, and imagine it for like 40-year-old frat boys
That's
who
just
wear
it.
like child's necklaces.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
The necklaces really get to me.
Yeah, the necklaces are the worst. Everything is the worst, honestly. He's just a gross human being.
He's pretty bad.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of our roundup right
Those
now.
are our feelings at this current moment. There's so
This
much
actually
going
felt really
on.
cathartic.
Yeah, this was good. I'm glad that we got to do this.
Yeah.
If you guys have similar feelings and thoughts about Vanderpump Rules and the Vanderpump Rules universe at this point, let us know in the comments below.